Hi everyone, it's Jerry. I have an excellent game to share with you from Dortmund 2013. On the white end, Fabiano Caruana playing against Michael Adams. Okay, the opening we work with here is Ruy Lopez, Berlin defense, and with this one we see the familiar Berlin endgame. So just making some quick moves here. We see an early queen exchange. There we go. We are 8 moves in. This is really the start position for this game. Positive for black, bishop pair, positive for white. Currently, a healthy kingside majority. In time, white will look to advance it, and already at this stage with h3 takes a step in that direction. h3 is seen more so as a supporter for g4 rather than producing a flight square. Playing as white here, you'll want to be delicate about the timing of these pawn moves. It could easily turn out where they become overextended and you're not in a position to adequately support them. Something that you always have to keep in mind is that once this pawn is on g4, you are asking eventually for an h5 strike, trying to influence that g4 pawn and peel open a file for the rook. A word of caution here is white. If black is able to play h5 and influence the g pawn such that it has to capture or push, something has gone wrong for you. If there is a hole created on f5, this once healthy structure will be unhealthy and unable to produce a kingside passed pawn. From here, it is bishop d7. We have a pin, a quick unpin. Here comes g4. Here comes knight g5, and the first role this bishop plays in the game is a defensive one. Keep a watchful eye on this bishop. It's the star piece in this game. Follow up from here is f4. That is healthy. Something I questioned here. What if white tries to influence black's kingside with the move e6? How are we reacting to this? The way to react to e6 would be with f6. And in the event of knight f7, we don't have much choice. We have to remove this knight. The rook is hit. If you move the rook, you will lose the king. So black must be prepared to play such a position here. This pawn turns out to be a liability. Right around the corner, you move the knight, move the bishop, and this pawn will be collected. White doesn't have the greatest development in this resulting position. So this follow-up e6, not a good idea by white. It is f4. Now comes h5, follow-up king f2, b6, king b7, and knight to c3. Let me throw this position here. Let me throw this one to you as a pop quiz. What move would you play here? What would be your next move or two? Feel free to pause the video. Okay, interesting sequence of moves now. We have the h file opening up. Rook enters with check. C pawn swiped. Now Caruana certainly saw that this pawn could be tracked. He saw deeper. He saw that he can now go hunting for this bishop. Did Adam see this far? He almost certainly saw as far. He saw that he could now go on the offensive with such a line. The only way forward here is with c5. Bishop is tracked, and here we are, the bishop now playing a very active role, supporting rook g2 move. This is an extra piece, but it is not well positioned, and there is some backward development for white. White does not find the correct way forward here, makes a decisive error already with f6, goes on a counterattack. Here's how the computer wants to play it. It's looking at one of these two moves. Let me touch on each briefly. If bishop g5, it's looking at this line here with some perpetual check. King f4, rook f2, king g3, rook g2. The other move, rook to d2, is saying Okay, just give the piece right back. Calls that even. Anything else to touch on? Yes, one more detail here. Suppose this knight tries to make a run for it. Knight h7. Here's how you can continue. Rook g2 check and rook h8. Now what? Computer is once more drawn to rook d2, giving the piece back. Here's the thing, if this knight tries to make a run for it, black would now be winning after rook h4. This point, and soon white's entire position will collapse. Okay, how it is played in this one, after the move, bishop c6, it is f6. From here, rook g2 check. King f4 is played here. If you go to the edge, you're probably asking for some trouble eventually with the rook getting to the h-file. The king stays more central in this game. King f4. Now the capture on f6. Follow-up check. Where to go with the king? In the game, it's king e3. If the king goes to one of these two to try and hang on to this f6 pawn, it's not going to end well. Let me touch on this one first. You could swipe the knight, land a check, and now target this point here. There isn't a way to hold on to this. Once this pawn falls, the king is on the edge. All sorts of mating ideas from there. Pushing this pawn, it's mate in one, and trying to interfere with this pawn's capture with bishop g5 will lose the bishop. Rook check, and you would have to block. If the king goes in the other direction after this check on f2, the king goes to e5, there's rook e8, and there's already a checkmate in one. A double checkmate. It'll be mate shortly from here. Okay, Caruana's play is with king e3. Follow up now. Rook captures f6. Knight h7. Rook f3. The bishop here is supporter for rook g2 moves. Rook f3 move now. King goes to d2. If you go to e2, you're asking for rook to e8. Follow up discovered check with the knight move. King d2 it is. Rook check. King c2. Pop quiz. How would you continue here? Feel free to pause the video. Okay, the move played here, rook captures knight. Pawn takes, and now bishop a4 with a skewer. First, this bishop played a defensive role, defending a pawn, and then a supporting role with rook moves to g2 and f3, and now we have this skewer. King and rook. Black is winning. Black is up now 2 pawns. Let's see the conversion from here. Rook captures rook, bishop captures rook. This pawn will now fall. White goes on the offensive, targeting the only vulnerable point in black's camp. There we go with knight f6, knight e8. This pawn will be tracked. But let's see, after knight a5, how to take the pawn if you want to take the pawn. In the game, it's knight captures. If you take with the bishop, there would be bishop c6. Knight is hit, bishop is hit, black will soon win a piece. How it is played here, knight captures pawn, bishop c6 even here. Now what for the knight? It's stuck. No good moves. Bishop has to stay trained as a defensive piece here of the knight. There's no way out of this. White is stuck. King takes a step forward and backward. There's nothing to do here. Knight c4, knight a6, bishop b7, knight b8 check, king c8, knight remains, stuck. Follow up king d3, and after b5, white resigns. There's no improvements for any of these pieces. What else are you supposed to do? If a4, you could support b5. Nothing is really changing there. And the winning plan from here, if the game continued, just making a passing move, simplest here, in my opinion, would be f6. And next up, knight e5, which would cut the knight's defense. Okay, How it plays out here after b5, Caruana resigns. Anyhow, what are your thoughts on this one? Feel free, as usual, to leave any feedback to this video in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed it and maybe took a thing or two away. That's all for now. Take care.